simply to love God and love your neighbor with all your heart. And from the beginning, deep within the Torah, even within the book of Leviticus, there was a subversive element introduced, a teaching that was meant to subvert this tendency to get hung up on the rules and on your own righteousness. You shall not bear a grudge against any of your people, it reads in Leviticus, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself, for I am the Lord. That's where Jesus got it from, believe it or not, probably, Leviticus and Deuteronomy. And much of Leviticus is devoted to practicing justice toward all. Throughout the Hebrew Scriptures, there's an emphasis on care for the orphan and the widow and the foreigner in your land. In other words, care for the least of these is the highest form of faith. We all know Psalm 23, the most beloved psalm in Judaism and Christianity, which powerfully portrays God as a loving shepherd rather than a harsh judge measuring every action that we take. Over and over again, the Hebrew prophets declare that God doesn't seek religious sacrifice or ritual, but a transformed heart and a transformed society. You already know what God wants you to do, said Micah. Just 3 things. Just 3. To do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly. And then Jeremiah holds out the promise of a day that is coming, he said, when God will put the law within us and write it on our hearts. No longer shall they teach one another or say to each other, know the Lord. In other words, no longer will they need a code of conduct and people in robes doing this, whatever it is I'm doing up here. For they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest. So you see, from the very beginning, deep within our tradition, there was always this subversive element, this teaching that was meant to subvert the tendency to get hung up on rules and on your own righteousness. Jesus, Paul, and the writers of the New Testament take this tendency one step further and lift up this teaching about love and care for your neighbor so that it's no longer just a subversive element within religious law, but it's the whole enchilada. And that's a technical, scholarly term. They came and asked Jesus, what is the whole enchilada, Jesus? He said, this is it. The one thing, the whole thing that is asked of us. Teacher, which commandment in the law is the whole enchilada? Jesus was asked. And you know the answer. Love God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets. And if this was not clear enough, Jesus emphasized the point over and over again. The practice of Sabbath, he said, was made for human beings, not human beings for the Sabbath. And that's where the Sabbath really represents the heart of the law. The law was made for human beings, not human beings for the law. Go and learn what this means, he told the strict observers of the law. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. I give you a new commandment, he taught his disciples at the end of his life, at the end of his ministry in the Gospel of John, that you love one another. I think of this these days when I hear people use that phrase, the rule of law, to justify, for example, deporting young people who have lived in this country all their lives. I think of it whenever people try to use the rule of law to justify any unjust, unfair outcome in other people's lives in our society. I often wonder, what exactly do people mean when they throw out that phrase, the rule of law, as if it were something utterly clear and immutable? Do we pledge allegiance to the rule of law in this country? No, we don't. We pledge allegiance to liberty and justice for all, which is or should be the intent of the law. Of course, we want and need order in society. We need a robust system of laws to preserve civil society. But in his challenge to the social and religious laws of his day, Jesus made it clear laws are made for human beings, not the other way around. If a law is unjust, if a law undermines human dignity, if it results in cruel outcomes, then change it. Change it to reflect the higher law of God's love. Speaking about the life of the church, Anthony DeMello wrote, where's the fire? Where's the love? Where's the freedom? This is what spirituality is all about. Tragically, we tend to lose sight of this, don't we? This is what Jesus Christ is all about. But we overemphasize the Lord, Lord, don't we? Where's the fire? if worship is not leading to the fire, if faith isn't leading to love, if the liturgy isn't leading to a clearer perception of reality, if God isn't leading us to life, of what use is religion except to create more division, or fanaticism, or antagonism?